In the next edition of It's About Money, I'll be talking with Miche Fambro, and he's an artist-performer, and we'll be talking about the dynamics of his craft and also the financials of it. Stay tuned for our show. Hello and welcome to another edition of It's About Money. I'm Nannette Nocon and thank you for joining us. My guest today is Miche Fambro. He's an artist-performer and I'm so excited to talk to him about how he does it. Miche, thank you for being here.
I'm thrilled to be here. I mean, this is quite a challenge for me, I have to tell you.
Well, now you're a musician, an artist, a performer. What is your favorite hat that you wear?
Well, I would say entertainer. And the reason why I say entertainer is because entertainer is inclusive of all of it. And I'm one of these people that I've been blessed and cursed to be able to do a lot of different things. And it's really hard these days when demographics has entered the lexicon for music to do a lot of different things. And as an entertainer, you can just go out and do everything.
No, that's great. It's a lot more flexibility.
It's a lot more flexibility, yes.
So how did you prepare to become an entertainer?
Well, for some people, it's just, you know, there's a saying of, or at least an understanding of being true to yourself. And some people are just naturally just, they might be, I would consider myself just kind of a silly guy. You know, I have a very immature way of thinking and processing, which can be entertaining, thus entertainer. And so I think you might reach a point in your life when you realize, you know, when I'm out playing music, and musicians are usually happy to just play and play and play, and you know, after about 32 bars of soloing, I get bored. And then I'll just stop and then I'll just start talking. Everybody's looking at me. So I realized that it was just natural.
Mm-hmm. That's great. That's great. Yeah, because unlike, for example, for me, to decide to be an entertainer, I'd really flop. I can't even hold a tune. I'm the kind of person my husband says at church, not so loud, honey. Okay. So now, did you have formal training?
No, I haven't. Although I did try. I'm left-handed. And when I tried to go to school, my natural instrument is the guitar. That's what I play. And I wanted to take guitar lessons and everything. I started out as a drummer. And so I went to a prestigious school in Philadelphia called Settlement or something like that. And basically the teacher says, well, look, you play the guitar upside down. And if we teach you, you're going to have to turn it right. This is not going to reflect well on the school. And of course, you know, I was totally dreaded at the thought of having to start all over again. So I wasn't able to do that. I took theory instead. And only until last week have I figured out what all that stuff meant. You know?
So then it sounded like that didn't stop you from
Oh,
wanting.
no.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Really, I guess it's natural.
No.
And
Well, I would be considered what they used to call a street musician. And basically, you're just self-taught. Most of us, the backdrop for me as a kid was certainly listening to the radio. I mean, you didn't listen to it, it was just on. It was the backdrop of being a kid. And then you reach a point where all of a sudden those memories are, you know, they're just part of you. And when I started playing music, I had so much to draw from. So yeah, I'm self-taught.
now, what was your inspiration, or what is your inspiration?
Well, my inspiration, I would say that the thing that really triggered things for me in a big way, which is actually starting to come out now in my wonderful age, and that is that as a kid, R&B, Motown, that was what we grew up with. So one day I happened to have this radio station on that was considered MOR, middle of the road, and it was a Friday, and they played Frank Sinatra for like 2 hours. It was like Friday with Frank. And for me, this was like alternative music. Like, this was different. And I lived for Fridays. I mean, this is 70, so it was still the post-60s psychedelic lights. I get in the room, I put the lights on, turn off the lights, have my little, cool psychedelic lights going on, listening to Sinatra.
Oh.
It was great.
How neat is that? That's terrific.
And now I'm actually doing a lot of that stuff.
Oh, neat. Now, is Miche Fambro your stage name or your real name? Because I like the sound of it.
Oh, no. Actually, my born name is Clifton Michael Fambro. And, my Clifton, or Clifton. But Mickey is the name that I grew up with. That's what everyone calls me. That's, you go home, hey, Mickey, hi. And when I came to Rochester, 70s was also, people would spell their names, a lot of different ways. And Michelob beer, if you remember that, I don't know if they're still around. Is it still around?
Yeah,
okay.
still around.
Well, they must have just started, and so there were all these big ad campaigns, and I happened to look at the, at the spelling, Michelob, and I had this brilliance, this notion that, ooh, if I put an accent over that E, it's going to be Mickey. So I spelled it that way, and when I came up in Rochester, I had a band that got to be really popular in the area, and somebody wrote an article on us, which was very great. It was a good article, and they said Miche, and they put in parentheses, pronounce, well, M-I-C-H-E, pronounce Miche. And I got, you could say, stuck with it.
Uh-huh.
So I became Miche, So you'll notice people get confused because people that generally know me call me Mick.
I see, okay.
So yes, it's just something that just sort of happened. It goes well with Fambro.
Oh, I say. It's very nice, very memorable, you know what I mean? So once you hear it, like, okay, I know that name.
Yeah, so that's, I hear somebody, Clifton, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm in trouble.
Now, have you always been a performer? Have you always made a living as a performer? Or did you
I've always tried to make a living as a performer, yes. And yeah, I had a very unique approach to all this because my wife was, she was the one that had the, the higher education. And I thought, oh, you know what? Why don't you go ahead and do that? And we had one daughter at the time. I said, I'll take care of the kids. I'll do that. Piece of cake. You can, I'll do that, and at night, I'll play. And it wasn't quite as easy as I thought it was going to be. And so anyway, finally, I have two girls, and now that they're a little older, I can really focus on what I'm doing now. So I was mom for a while.
Okay, well, you're dad, but stay-home dad. I think that's wonderful. Yeah. That's wonderful. So it wasn't really a transition. It was just a kind of an evolution to what you're doing right now. Yeah. Now, what type of gigs are you hired most often?
Well, now I'm kind of an exception to a lot of all this because if you wear a lot of hats, you might get calls for a lot of different things. So I would say that up into coming back to Rochester, and I've been back for about 2 years or something like that, I was basically an acoustic guitarist traveling, touring Canada and the U.S. So that's what I basically spend most of my time doing. Because as a soloist, the perks of that is that you're by yourself. There's no overhead. So I can afford to do a lot of, things that might seem a little silly to do, meaning that there isn't a great deal of money in it. But if you have CDs to sell and product to sell, you recognize that there's definitely some justification for getting out there. Let me put it this way. Musicians are basically missionaries. You're a missionary, and you recognize that you're going out there and you're trying to recruit every place you go. So there is definitely some justification to what might seem to be a very silly thing to do. There's no money in this. Why are you doing it? Well, I'm trying to build up an audience, and I'm in front of, 500 people there. Maybe only 75 people might want to buy, my CD. And that's still pretty good.
I'd say. That's wonderful.
So anyway. Yeah.
So if you compare it to a missionary, you're trying to recruit fans, so to speak.
Yes.
Okay, got it. I see. That's a great analogy. I never thought of it that way. But I could see how, you know, it's really hard to make a living just on the earned income from the performance.
Yeah.
So selling the CDs is a good deal. And that has actually transformed quite a bit over the years, where it's easier for a musician to create their own CDs.
Absolutely.
And the profit margin's larger than what it
Yes.
had been before. But you have to do your own marketing.
You just nailed it, because it's a new world for everything, and one of the pros and cons of this new change is the fact that musicians, whether you're great, whether you suck, whether you're old or whatever, there is still a possibility, a chance that you can still find people that like and love what you're doing. Because you can go to the people directly via the internet. I mean, I'm telling you, it's created a lot of, you know, wonderful things. But with that comes a whole load of other problems. And most notably is marketing. And back in the Stone Age, when record companies were what we definitely aspired to do, it was their responsibility, when they basically loaned you that money, which you didn't realize it was a loan, to basically make you ubiquitous. It was their job to do that. So they had, you know, marketing, all this kind of stuff. But what would almost always happen is whenever you have a huge thing where a lot of people are designated jobs, it's amazing how very few of these people do their jobs very well. And so if you go to any record store, you will see hundreds, thousands of all these artists you've never even heard of before. But they're on major labels. So who did their marketing?
Where they not so known.
Right. You know, well, okay, so now what happens is we no longer have the companies to blame. We have to do it ourselves, and we're starting to realize, oh my God, this is tough work. You know, because marketing, I would say that when all of this started, it was easier because not a lot of musicians were internet savvy. So the few people that got on the bandwagon right at the beginning really had some major benefits. But see, now everybody and their brother is on there, you know, with Facebook and MySpace, which has just become, in my opinion, a bit oversaturated. So now it's pretty much, well, you've got thousands of people all doing this stuff. You have to be very creative to figure out a way of making yourself known.
Sure.
And marketing. And a lot of us are still pretty clueless, you know, on that.
And I believe most schools, even formal training, don't talk about how you run your business as an entertainer.
Yes.
They don't really teach that. You know, they teach you how to be excellent at what you do, train your ear, train your hands, train, you know, everything about it, but not the business aspect of it. So that's unfortunate, I think. Hopefully that will change.
You know, now that you mention it, I think one of the things that maybe musicians might, one of the differences between some of the new musicians compared to the old school, and when I say old school, I mean up to, say, the 90s, is musicians, unfortunately, old school, the whole thought of being pragmatic was something that was very contradicting to what we did. You know, if you even thought like that at all, people, there was this notion that you were selling out to be businesslike.
Sure, I see what you mean. It's not pure.
It's not pure. It's,
yes.
you know, and most of the artists basically instead, you know, relied on the good vibes and all this kind of thing. And then 15 years later, they realize, you know, I think it's time to eat something, and good vibes. Well, so anyway, you know, there's I think we recognize now that companies, it's not, you know, they're not really in the picture anymore. We recognize that, oh, I guess we do have to get out there and work.
Right.
That the work is having to do all of these things, to think about every single thing that we're doing, to recognize that when we play at a coffee house in which you're paid tips and one free cup of coffee, and some of them don't even do that anymore, that might be that if you're doing that, you're going to have a tough time trying to get another show a week later where you're trying to get them to pay you, $5 or $10, a head, a cover charge, where people come in. Why would they do that when they know that, well, wait, he's going to be down there playing for nothing in a couple weeks?
Sure.
Musicians are starting to get it a little.
Yeah, that's interesting. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. My guest is Miche Fambro.
Hi, I'm Ben Affleck, and many actors have played the part of U.S. servicemen in the movies. But for veterans like James Crosby, their service and their sacrifice are real. And too often when they come home, their struggle continues. For over 60 years, Paralyzed Veterans of America has been fighting to help our injured veterans get the benefits they need and have earned.
Paralyzed Veterans of America was there for me when I came home.
Join me in supporting our paralyzed veterans. Visit pva.org.
And we're back. I'm Nannette Nocon, and my guest is Miche Fambro, and we're talking about his talent, his business as an artist entertainer. Thanks again for being here, Miche.
You're very, very welcome.
So tell me, is there a favorite or perfect gig for you?
A perfect gig? I can think of about 15.
Oh, all right.
Actually, a show in which you're certainly paid, well, but a little more than that is basically having an audience that's receptive to what you're doing. There was a time where the gigs that most of us were shooting for were the college gigs, and these gigs paid very well. But what you found was you went there, and there was hardly ever anybody there. And I thought, that I would go to somebody and say, look, this is wrong. You're paying me all this money and there's no one here. I think you ought to do something about this. But of course, you don't want to do that. And so anyway, getting paid a lot of money is wonderful, but you want to have somebody there.
Sure, of course.
So that's the perfect gig. Well attended, and fairly lucrative.
Sure. And perhaps somebody who has the same kind of experience that you had when you listened to Friday with Frank.
Yes.
So people get hooked.
Right.
So how do you refresh your repertoire? I mean, how do you come up with new things? How do you do that? Or are you fine doing the same thing as you love the music?
Well, I have this thing called the Miche Fambro Show.
Okay. Yes.
And this is, like I said, what I love about this is, yes, I get a chance to really showcase what I do, and I do a lot of things. But it's not just about me. It's about, the guests. And the show is really about Rochester is what it's about. When you do a show like that, it always changes. So one week, you go from being a crooner, which that's sort of my thing, and the next week you're playing Western tunes.
I see.
So, I find that that format is very easy to prepare for because it changes from guest to guest. As a soloist, when I'm playing, you find that if you're traveling around a lot, your material pretty much can stay the same because every night you're playing, it's a different audience. Mm-hmm. It's when you start making those repeat visits, is when you realize, oh my God, I played at that place before and I don't have a single tune. I better do something new, here.
I see.
So it's a little bit of knowing what you're going to do. And if it's a place that, if you're returning, you know that you've got to get some new material in there. If it's like a fresh place, then you pretty much just do what you've always been doing because you know that it's new to the people that are listening to it, so it's not quite boring to you.
Sure, and the response would be a little different because it's refreshing. Mm-hmm. So tell me about your show, the Miche Fambro Show. What is that? What
that show is generally speaking, music is having a tough time. I think it's way too much of it. And the fact is back in the day, oh, honey, what are we going to do tonight? Oh, let's go out and see something, go out and see some music. These days, you can sit in front of your computer watch whatever you like, the best of the best, right there. So the thought of going out to see something, you've got to, you're not just that thrilled about it. So this has really kind of made things very tough. Now, what I realize is, well, you got to give people a reason to want to go out. So what can I do? And I grew up with a lot of these talk shows, variety shows, and everybody had one. The Smothers Brothers, Carol Burnett, even Sinatra, and the Jacksons had a variety show. The Jackson 5, everybody. That was the thing. And what was fun about a lot of these shows is, well, it was live, so you got to see people play with each other. Things weren't quite as staged as I think they are now. There was a lot of vulnerability in a lot of those shows as, live programming goes. So my show is definitely a throwback, to that. And coming here to Rochester, the idea is introducing people to their neighbors. A lot of the arts don't cross. The musicians don't know the actors, don't know, we don't know each other. We don't do things together. So I'll do a show, and if you were my guest, for example, and maybe I would find out that you you've always wanted to be a nurse, let's just say. And I would probably write a skit, where you're on the show and we can get very serious, but it's like, okay, now we're going to play nurse. We'll play doctor, fun.
I see.
So the show, there's a lot of music, but it's just something for the family.
Is it aired? Is it on stage?
Right now, it's live.
Live, okay.
It's live.
All right.
It would be so much easier, actually, if it were in a studio, because these shows are pretty expensive to do. And sponsorship is really that's what it's going to take.
I see.
And I don't know if you remember the old Groucho Marx show, You Bet Your Life. I mean, shows like that, I love that stuff. And back in those days, you'd have these sponsors, DeSoto Plymouth, and whenever you saw those shows, DeSoto Plymouth. And whoever the sponsor was built into the show.
Yes, of course.
And I think that's what I'm hoping to find, something that hopefully I like, I would want to support, and we would build whatever it is that they're doing right into the show.
Sure.
And the whole premise is just fun. Music, skits, who knows?
Right. Now, what suggestion would you have or recommendation to a musician who's getting started? I mean, how do they get about it? It's hard to make a living initially. Do you have any suggestions that you'd like to share?
Yes, don't do it. No, really. No, really. I think, if you get into the music business, there's a difference between, okay, if the question is, can you make money doing this? The answer is yes.
Okay, all right.
The answer is, oh yeah. So wedding bands, lounge musicians, the guys who graduate Juilliard and go play over there and don't let anybody hear you. And they get paid a lot of money to do that. And now, if that's what you want to do, I mean, there's a lot of money. That's very lucrative. People, do that. None of these things I'm particularly interested in. But you can do that. If you're one of the artists, type now, younger folks, when you get into this stuff, well, everybody usually aspire to that. You want to do the, hardest thing. I mean, let's face it, that looks really fun. But unfortunately, even with business, if you're doing it initially to make money, well, you're going to be disappointed.
Sure.
You're going to be disappointed.
Sure.
So there's this combination of, well, yes, you love it, but you also have to recognize the fact that you are still dealing with the fact that you are trying to appeal to people, and that has to be a part of your thinking in terms of how do you present it.
I see.
A lot of people don't think about that.
Got it.
So you're just going to, so for someone that's young, that's paying attention to this, music and art, that's great, but you have to pay attention to the marketing, promotion, what these things mean. And a lot of people these days have the internet, and there's a lot of information out there.
Sure, right.
You know, so basically use it.
Sure. There's a lot of resources.
A lot of resources.
Yeah, that's great. So we're going to have the pleasure of hearing you perform with your acoustic guitar. So I'm looking forward to that. You'd do that for us, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Okay, great. I can't wait to hear. So we're going to hear Miche Fambro perform here at the studio in just a minute.
Have you never once heard it's bad manners to stare? And if so, would you please explain the strange light in your eyes, that gaze that meets mine, probing my soul without the least restraint? There are patterns that shift, shards of glass in the light that reflect through the mirrors within, as though you might possess kaleidoscope eyes. And I can't even tell it's heaven or hell that calls me in. There's a spellbinding fire that builds as all my secrets are revealed. It's as though you see everyone and you're coming undone. You're melting. You want me. You love me. And when you look away, all is barren and gray. Does me no good to hide. You see, I must gaze into those kaleidoscope eyes, and I know before long their sweet siren song will capture me. And I know before long their sweet siren song will capture me.
Miche, thank you very much for being
welcome.
a guest at my show today. And thank you, our audience, for listening in. Hope you enjoyed the program and also enjoyed the music as I did. I'm Nannette Nocon, and it's about money. Until next time.
Thanks for tuning in to today's show. If you have any questions for It's About Money, please email Nannette at nnocon@aol.com. This program was produced through Penfield Community Television in Penfield, New York.